today I am here at the Certified Hypnotherapy Training School with Dennis Parker and John Harmer, and we are going to talk about problems and issues that are facing Utah families and really families all over the nation. John, you are the chairman of a nonprofit, a nationwide nonprofit organization called the Light a Candle Society.
Correct.
And you guys are dedicated to eradicating pornography. You've had quite an illustrious career. Tell me a little bit how you started down this path.
The Light a Candle Society spent about $500,000 studying on how the human brain reacts to exposure to sexually explicit material.
Okay.
And we did a lot of studies with people live in magnetic resonance imagers. We were watching how the brain works when it's exposed to what we call fight or flight images. Mm-hmm. We didn't ever expose people to pornography, but we exposed them to scenes that would make their brain act the same way it would act if it saw pornography. Mm-hmm. We were the first people to show how sexually explicit material creates an addictive pathway in the brain. We could follow that path and see it. Uh-huh. Our whole strategy was that with that information, we could take the producers and distributors of pornography into civil court. Mm-hmm. We are not criminal prosecutors, but we take them into civil court, much like the tobacco cases, where the tobacco industry was successfully sued because they were causing lung cancer. Yeah. We could sue the producers and distributors of pornography because they were damaging a human organ called the brain with their material.
Kind of an important organ.
Yeah. And we, as I said, we spent over $500,000 just doing that work. Mm-hmm. We had a fantastic lawsuit ready to go. This was about 8 years ago.
Okay.
We had spent 3 years preparing the suit. We had the plaintiff, we had the evidence, we had everything we needed. Our last step was to test the community because we would have to have a jury. Mm-hmm. We wanted to make sure that we could have a jury impaneled who would recognize the fact that the material was pornographic.
Mm-hmm. And addictive.
And that destroyed our whole strategy because in a community as pristine as any community in the United States, as we interviewed people who would be prospective jurors, we found out that they said, well, I'm not sure that that's pornographic or not. What had happened to us, Holly, is that there was a transition of attitude toward sexually explicit material. And what 3 years earlier we had begun with as clear, absolutely clearly, under the law, pornographic material. Mm-hmm. In 3 years, public perception had modified enough. We weren't sure that with all the expense we would have, we could impanel a jury that would hold it was pornographic.
So it's a very scary issue, and it's something that, I mean, I have friends, I have, people who have had their families ripped apart from this addiction. It is a real addiction. It is a real problem. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen.
Well, Holly, how we got involved with Dennis Parker was the fact that we had been basing all of our material on what happens to the brain. And yet we could tell that even on all of the money we had spent, all of the study we'd done, we were missing some element. Mm-hmm. And finally it was Dennis who said to us, your problem is the brain and the mind are not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And we thought, this was an epiphany. All of a sudden we realized that we had been ignoring the fact, while the brain is a body organ, that body organ functions in a very predictable way. Mm-hmm. That body organ takes its orders from the mind, and the mind is what we were not working with. Mm-hmm. When we found out from Dennis what we were lacking, and I, from 51 years in this, I've worked with a lot of therapists who are trying to heal people from addiction to pornography. Usually, that would last 6, 7, 8 months. Mm-hmm. And within 2 or 3 months after the person was, quote, healed, unquote, they fall off the wagon, they're right back in the same place. But I have people always asking me, can you represent to us a therapist? Mm-hmm. Can you represent, it would always be, I have a friend who's in pornography. That meant it was my wife, my husband, my son.
Or yourself.
But it was a friend.
Yes.
Or yourself, yeah. So I'd say, here's a list of 3 therapists, 5 therapists. Give it to your friend, let your friend go to any one of these people.
But you didn't ever officially endorse anyone.
Oh no, quite the contrary. I felt a little hypocritical because these people, yeah, they mean well, they're well trained, they're very expensive, but they don't succeed.
They don't know what they're doing.
Somebody that, a common acquaintance said, you need to go meet Dennis because Dennis does in 5 or 6 weeks what these other therapists can't do in 5 or 6 months. So I said, Dennis, I want to watch you do this. And so he let me sit in 2 or 3 sessions. I was amazed.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed with the way in which Dennis was able to get the person to get their mind in control of their brain so that they could overcome this addiction.
Wow.
And so for the first time in all of the years we've been doing this, I've endorsed a therapist, and when people ask me now, I don't give them a list of 5, I give them Dennis Parker's name.
Wow, that's amazing. Dennis, do you like how we're talking about you as if you're not even here?
Yeah,
Especially when it's this amazing of a compliment?
yeah, it's an amazing endorsement. We're very grateful for it. We claim to have discovered and understand how the imagination works. The more you turn the thought or the image, the video, whatever up in the imagination, it's also simultaneously turning up,
The addiction.
well, it's simultaneously turning up the emotions.
Oh, okay.
And as the emotions are translated through the brain releases all of those chemicals and so on that people want to talk about that stimulate bodily functions. So what we've learned is that when we teach people how to manage their mind, we call it mind management because we're teaching them to manage mostly their imagination, which also includes, we teach them memories and so on. But when we teach them how to manage their imagination, it shuts down the emotional content through the brain, and then the body automatically adjusts.
Which is why you have a hard time with the word addiction, because you think that it's not really an addiction if you can help people learn how to do this.
When they come in and they learn how to do this process, then it's not an addiction, it's just a matter of a poor choice, right? And I don't like to use the word addiction because with the guys that come in here, and again, I said that last time, but the guys who come in here and want to use the term addiction as though it's something that's beyond their control, they can't handle it, or it's a disease, or one of those kinds of things, those are usually being used as an excuse for failure in advance to continue doing it.
Yeah.
And so, as I said,
you can get over this.
yeah, we don't let them get away with that here.
And you do much more than this, and I think that's really empowering. I think taking away the addiction label is empowering because I bet there's a lot of people who have suffered with this addiction thinking there's no hope, and you're saying, guess what? There is not only hope for this, but you also offer hope for a lot of other things because this is helping families. You offer counseling and therapy. You help the families around it.
Well, the same process of turning the imagination down and turning the emotion down applies to any emotion. So if a person has anger management issues, or if they have
Depression.
yeah, whatever,
anxiety.
yeah, really any kind of major emotion can be at least detached and desensitized through these processes. And then through the rest of the work that we do, we teach them how to resolve it, or in therapy we like to say bring about closure, so it just isn't there anymore.
Okay, and then you also talked to me a little bit about people who want to take this class because they just want to learn the skills. They want to learn about all of this stuff you're teaching.
Right. We have parents and grandparents and people who want to learn these behavioral modification skills to basically work with their friends and families. And so they'll come in and they'll take the same clinical trainings, the same courses, but they don't have any desire to go out and set up a...
They don't want to do business.
Yeah, they don't want to have a clinical hypnotherapy practice. They just want to know these skills. And we get managers and executives from companies who want to know behavioral manament to manage their groups.
And inspire.
Church
help
leaders.
People get over fears and phobias. And
Exactly. So we're getting more of those people who want to know how to do this, but they don't want to set up a therapy practice.
because you can help people who have fear with sales, who aren't doing very well. You can help them
Right.
learn how to overcome that.
Public speaking, fear of picking up that 50-pound telephone and make that next prospecting call.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
So there's a lot of people who maybe have a whole other business that this would be such a great thing to add to what they do.
That's
Well,
right.
Helping families, obviously there's so many ways trickling down. Everything you just said, obviously if you can manage your mind and you can manage your behaviors, how you interact with those around you and how you're working as a member of a family, as a member of society. I mean, it's a huge thing what you're teaching people, so that's
Well, it's
incredible.
it's really all encompassing because we are talking about their mind, their spiritual mind that controls the brain, and then the brain controls the body. So it gets the sequence correct to where people can learn to do amazing things.
If someone wants to come and see you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can call, my phone is 801-628-0693. The office phone is the same number, just 07. They can also go online and send us an email if they want.
Okay, and that's to see you privately, totally separate from the school.
Yes,
They
when I'm
just
not
have-
yes, when I'm not teaching school, I do private sessions.
Awesome.
And so we're happy to
Fantastic.
work with them as well.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for talking to me. And John, before we let you go, how can they get a hold of you?
I was afraid you'd never ask.
Were you afraid? Oh, I wouldn't forget about you. I know we're separated here, but
It's www.thelightedcandlesociety.net.
okay.
Everything on that site will tell them what we're up to.
Okay, and you guys are always up to something good.
We hope so.